Yo, what's up?
Let me mix this up.
There we go.
Hi.
What's...
Welcome to the second overall midnight crossover, but the first official one, branded that way. I'm William from the Sci-Fi Center, obviously, and this is Andre Nicotina from Midnight Express. So Brad will probably be joining us soon if he got your permission slip to be up past midnight. It's always touch and go. So we got to make sure we're not up. There he is. Have to make sure we're not breaking any child labor laws.
No, sorry,
child labor laws.
Yeah, sorry. I clicked on actually the link for the one for the Monarch watch party last night. So I was sitting back.
Oh, don't you hate that? I've done it before too. I click on the old link and there's nobody there. I'm like, what the hell's going on?
It's not an old one. Yeah, it's not an old one. It's one for the Monarch watch party he's playing tomorrow.
Right,
okay.
I made it.
I'm thinking like, what is everybody like?
I made it and I clicked on it and I'm like, wow, where is Andre? Where is everybody?
They sure are running late. What's going on?
Yeah, and I'm like, wow, nobody's coming to this one. And then I looked at it and I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah, we got the Monarch thing going on tomorrow. That's now that I know what I'm doing, this will be a lot smoother than the even though the Seven Samurai one went very, very, I thought smooth for me. I mean, I didn't blow up the stream. But tomorrow I know what I'm doing, so I'm going to be ready. I've watched Monarch. I watched episode 1. I did not watch episode 2, so I'm actually going to be watching episode 2 live with you guys as you are not live, but as you guys see it, I'll see it too. So then we have our overnighter tomorrow, which I got we just got a lot going on.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
But how you doing, Nicotina? What's been going on with you? You are you're not a guest because technically this is a joint broadcast. So, but I'll let you go first because I run my mouth 8 hours a weekend.
Hey, man, it's all good. I mean, look, streaming with anyone who can run their mouth and just go and go and go is added benefit, man. I'll tell you what. There's been times in the past where I've done streams, especially the midnight run, and I've had people come on who don't want to say anything. I'm just like, okay, cool. I'm glad you're here because I'm just talking to myself, and that's actually even worse. But I might as well be alone. Well, you know, it's funny because like for the longest time I was doing the show by myself, and so then I, started to learn how to like talk to myself in a sense, and then also interact with the chat. And then after about, it was about a year and a half. I think about a year and a half, almost 2 years that I did that show. I started gaining an audience at that hour. And then they moved, and then they changed my hours at work, and then all of a sudden I was working in the morning, and so I couldn't do it anymore. But it's interesting because the later you get, the different like time zones you hit. So like when you get past 1 a.m. on the West Coast, then all of a sudden you start getting everyone from the UK and from Europe showing up.
Australia, we got our Australians.
Yeah, Australia.
Yeah,
it's interesting, and then people from India as well. And what's funny is that like for a while the second biggest market that my channel got its views was from India. And I was like, oh, awesome.
Oh, really?
Cool. Yeah.
That's true. I look at mine. I get people, they're not in the chat, but they watch the later stream. Yeah. Pakistan. I get them all over that because when you go into YouTube, it actually breaks down where the globally
internationally. Yeah.
I'm like, what the hell? I wish some of these guys
internationally. Yeah, I know, and it's really cool. The especially during the Snyder Cut days, like that was a big deal. That like a lot of fans out there in the Middle East, they didn't have, or especially in India, Pakistan, like I said, they don't have a lot of channels that like are covering this stuff, and so they watch all these channels. But a lot of them, they would tell me, the biggest problem they have is that, they have a lot of friends who are into it as well, but they don't understand English. So they can't really watch these and really interact because they're like, they don't even know what I'm saying. So like, oh, crap. So,
yeah,
but
we get Chinese. So I'll get Chinese comments, and then I'll have to do the little translation things. So,
oh, wow.
And I'm like, and I'm wondering, because it takes a while, and I'm like, oh, did they say some shit? Are they talking some bullshit?
I know.
I can't even respond to it.
You translate it, it's like, you suck,
And then I do translate it because I do have trolls. Right? I'm big enough now.
Everybody does.
Big, but I'm big enough for trolls.
Like in my chosen career field, I'm pretty used to seeing viewers, from internet or readers, I should say, from internationally, whether in people in Hong Kong or Russia or the Middle East or South America, what have you. And of course, I have a lot of colleagues say, "Hey, what's up, Ann? Preach it." I didn't have the
We might have to retire your
um,
there, bud.
but yeah, still this being my first year in YouTube stuff, it's like that's still even that's a little jarring. It's like, oh yeah, we got as I call him, the Brit and the Aussie, in our comment slots. So it's like I'm still that's Aaron and Ruth. So
what's going on? Yeah, we got Aaron, we got Ruth. I'm saying hi to Nicotini's right here. How you doing, Joga?
Hey, what's up?
So yeah, what kind of news? We had a lot. I mean, obviously we covered the Rebel Moon trailer. I mean, we covered it in depth. So since the last time we talked, we had the Rebel Moon trailer.
Probably cover it until it comes out.
Exactly. Well, let me ask you guys. I mean, what'd you think of the Rebel Moon trailer? I mean, William, and what was your take on it?
It gave me a little bit more depth than the actual teaser did. So, even though they were roughly the same amount of time, you can tell the difference between a teaser and a trailer when you match those up together. You got a little bit more depth in that story. You got a little bit more depth in her character. You actually got a little bit more of an introduction to each of the primary characters, including the antagonist, the protagonist, some of the sub characters. So you got a little bit more, and you have the premise of you should now have the premise of the story, which, like I said, I've been saying it's Seven Samurai to a T, and I say that in the best way possible.
Yeah.
So I liked it, and visually it gave you a lot more. It gave you a lot more contrasting in color than the teaser did. So I think
like I said, the way I kind of saw it was that the teaser, again, probably the longest teaser we've ever seen, and the teaser is advertising both movies. It's like the teaser was selling you on the universe. This trailer was selling you on the story and the characters,
right.
Not much more so.
So I enjoyed it. I think we're in a good spot for that. So
it was really cool because like I had just done my video on it, and so then when I got to watch the trailer, I was like, I know more about the movie than I've ever known in my life because I had to research it. And what's funny is that like when I was making the video of the character breakdown, there wasn't a lot of information about some of these characters. I had to dig deep to find like just.
I was impressed, by the way. I didn't get a chance to tell you that in person.
Oh, thanks, guys.
That was really impressive. I'm like, as soon as I watched it, I need to jack this from him, but I'm going to ask. I'm like, can I jack your shit?
Oh yeah, I was like, go right ahead. Well, and then I tuned in, and you guys were watching, and I was like, oh shit, he's going to watch the whole video. That's cool. But some of them were really hard. Like Belisarius, it was very hard to find anything about him. Even Jimmy at one point, like I didn't have much about him, and then finally I found a site that had some information about him that was legitimate, and I was like, oh cool, here it is, and there's a couple of characters I left out just because I couldn't find enough like information about them, so it just seemed really shallow. So I was like, all right, so like what's her name, Cleopatra
Coleman.
Yes, her character, which is Darian Bloodaxe's sister, there was not a lot of information about her, so I was gonna make them like a combined character, like Darian and or the Blood Axes. And I was like, you know what, I'll just do one character and then just kind of go from there. But yeah, it was a lot of fun though. That one took me a while. That took me about. I mean, I wasn't working on it 24/7, but it took me like about a week to finish all that. Trying to do it on my spare time. But
we had our conspiracy theories. Was once he. Once the connection between Army and the Dead was like, so we were talking. We probably talked. 2 hours.
Oh yeah, that was like that. That went for like that. That was like, I mean, we went like probably a good hour on that, where we were like trying to theorize or establish what the linkage between Army of the Dead and Rebel Moon is going to be, and we had like 5 or 6 different theories. But yeah, that was a great character breakdown, and that was also very supplemental to what we were talking about in terms of the theories of where we what's going to happen with Cora, or what's going to happen with General Titus, or what's going to happen with Charlie Hunnam's Green Arrow. I mean Charlie Hunnam's Kai, excuse me. I must have been thinking about somebody else.
Will it be Charlie Hunnam? Will it be? One of the things that I think makes me nervous, and I'm nervous because already I feel the stakes that are being presented in the story. And so I wonder about like, okay, are we going to lose any characters in part 1, which I hope we don't. But I mean, I think I would imagine somebody has to die in the first one.
I think they all live in the first one and half of them die in the second one.
Yeah, I can see. Well,
I think it's
that's
going to go
something
to pattern of samurai. I think it's going to go to pattern of samurai.
Well, it's also that's something I've thought of too. Like even without the Seven Samurai comparison, I mean, like looking over Zach's entire body of work. I mean, he's really big on things like heroic sacrifices. I mean, just look at. I mean, Dawn of the Dead, 300, Sucker Punch Out. I mean, like really. I mean, Superman. Obviously, that death was saved for the second movie, but what you just look at almost every movie he's done. It does tend to involve some kind of a protagonist falling on the sword in some form or fashion. And with what he said about like the first movie it's like the recruitment movie, and the second one he described it as, I don't have this in front of me, but it's like the Normandy invasion, but the first half takes place in France. So it's like I would expect major characters will be making big sacrifices and going out a blaze of glory and all that. The guy I'm waiting on, as far as like the breakout character I expect, is Jimmy, and it's like I would not be surprised if he's one of the guys who goes out a blaze of glory, probably more likely in the second one.
Yeah.
So I'm going to flip that. I'm going to say he's one of the last remaining. I'm going to say that the narrator is always going to be the last. He to me, like I was telling you before in our foil hat thing. I think he is one of the binding things from whatever came before. Even if it's Army of the Dead, basically they destroyed this planet and they had to branch out. He's one of the original machines, original robots, and no matter what they do with this franchise, he will be the C-3PO and R2-D2. He will be pretty much in just about everything. So I don't think he's going to die. And the stakes of him dying wouldn't be high. But at the same time, it's hard to tell because we know a lot about these characters now from basically what we have, but I just don't know enough to let me know where I think where their sacrifices may or may happen. So I gotta do a little bit more research on that myself. I just have to see the movie too.
I am really, really looking forward to the making good on Korra's nickname of the Scar Giver, which of course that applies certain activities, warfare based skill sets you may have, and of course we saw some of that in the trailer. So I'm really looking forward to seeing like the Scar Giver in action.
She probably cut some fool that's still alive that has that scar. That's why
I mean,
she's one of the most wanted women in the galaxy. He said so.
Yeah. Well, and they kind of gave away, a big thing about her character as well. I mean, right from the start of the trailer, he says, he talks about how he found her ship crashed and he was going to leave her there because, he thought, she could bring trouble to their people. So I always had suspected that this was a case where something bad happened. She wasn't good with it. And she left the Imperium and then found herself on a different planet to live a peaceful life.
Like Finn from Star Wars, basically.
Exactly. But no, instead it sounds like she crashed there. But I mean, we don't know the context of why she crashed there. Maybe she was on the run. Who knows? And they thought she was dead. That I don't know yet. But I thought that was really interesting that they added that little bit of information about the character early on in the trailer. But when it comes to a character like Jimmy, Jimmy is he's a robot, and that's putting it lightly. But he is one of many that were made to protect and work for
king.
The king, which was the ruler of like their universe. And you see him dead, and they're carrying him. So like he died, and then he talks about how a girl or a daughter or a princess that he could not save, and he's talking about Princess Isa, and Princess Isa is the princess. She's a young girl who
I think it's probably Korra.
Well, here's the thing, though, is that, it says that the lore was saying that basically she was born and she was prophesized to be the one to bring everyone together in peace, but now she's dead or she's no longer alive. But it doesn't really go in any more than that. In fact, I left her out of that video because I didn't really know much about her except for that. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. So I figured, you know what?
So, man, these are now. So we know that the crossover is working now because these are people that I know that are coming free, except for Ruth. Hi, Ruth. What's going on?
How you doing,
Ruth? From the UK.
I'm gonna. She asked me actually when I started doing my Australian accent a couple streams ago. She asked me to do some quote and with a British accent. So I'm gonna drop one on here before the end of the stream to get even things out there. Just need to think of the right. If you hadn't seen that, Andre, I did I did Maximus's famous threat from Gladiator in Australian accent because it's like,
Oh yeah,
for some,
I heard that from you. Yeah, you did it on
Joker,
the Four Nerds once.
yeah, Joker
oh
dogged
yeah,
him.
yeah.
What's it? Aaron approved. One Australian approved, and the other Australian was like, "Dude, that was funny."
Look at
Yeah.
Drogo.
Oh, look at there you go.
Brad does do an Australian accent. Oh, I'm sorry. Was I not supposed to say it that way? Okay.
Because New Zealand accent. I guess it's the same. But then we had the other trailer that dropped in between that, and like I said, that was my favorite responses of the weeks. Just watching all the knuckle jaggers just lie in wait for the.
Oh, you're talking about Madam Web.
Yeah, that was I was like, dude, these guys had their scripted feelings ready to go. Trailer wasn't even over, and they were hitting. And I'm like, yeah, does it look like the greatest movie? No, greatest trailer, no, but it did what it was supposed to do. Got the conversation going, and I would more so than that because to me it doesn't really matter what the movie is. You got a culture of absolute dummies out there that are just that is their sport. Like, hunters hunt big game. These guys lay in wait to just basically shit on the movie. And I don't know what their criteria is always for choosing it, but this goes all the way back to 2013, all the way to 2016. And it's a culture that was, to me, developed with comic book movies because we had these tribes that thought they were getting a check from Kevin Feige or Kevin Tijara, and I guess they kept checking their mailboxes and direct deposits, and they never got any money from it. So that kind of died down, but it's still kind of there. It's like they'll pick a movie, and then they'll just pile on it. And I think that has an adverse effect because you don't have a populace that's always smart enough to be like, you know what, I think I'll use my own brain this time around. And it has an adverse effects on these movies. And it doesn't matter what the movie is sometimes. It's just they'll pick one and they'll pile on it. And then a lot of these people who go for that nonsense, they'll end up seeing it on the small screen and be like, wow, I should have saw this in the theater. And they let their fellow caveman drag them into the cave and dictate what they were going to do. And I saw a lot of it with the Madam Web trailer. I'm like, it didn't matter whether that trailer could have come out and it could have been Gladiator. It could have been Ridley Scott. It could have been Russell Crowe Reborn. It could have been the best movie. It could have been Godfather. If they've decided that they're going to shit on a movie, it's not going to matter how good or bad that movie is. That's their target. And I see that. I saw it heavily when the BVS was the first time because we were promoting BVS. And, the parakeets were starting before the movie was even done. Before the movie was even done, people who had no access to any of that stuff already had pulled down their diapers and begun to shit on the movie.
They did. And it was pretty terrible. And
I see that with with a lot of it's comic book movies, but you hear the key words, you hear those key Cro-Mag words, agenda, woke, or like I said, the other one, which I will, when we bring back the band list, MCU. That is your flair that I don't need to talk to you anymore. That I need to find a polite way to get out of that conversation because we're not going to have it.
I'm also seeing not this is necessarily as widespread as what you're talking about with Madam Web or BVS, but I have seen also that some of the usual suspects on Rebel Moon. Like I've seen some of that crowd say this is like discount Star Wars or great value Star Wars is the one they're kind of latching onto, and it's like, it's like you're coming into this with already you're trying to push people's buttons.
And it's sad. With all the technical advances we have at our disposal to be able to do our own deep dive into all these things, we don't. We listen. They find a YouTuber they like to hear that tells them what they want to hear, and then they bounce the same dumb shit off of all their fellow, people. It's like, and you can tell because you can listen to certain things. You can listen to a stream here or there, and you look at the chat. You start to hear it. It's like the echo chamber. It's like you didn't even think of that on your own. So it's like, wow, and it's gonna happen with Rebel Moon, but I think Rebel Moon has a strong enough base to it. And I think Rebel Moon. And here's the thing, I think Rebel Moon's untouchable in this way, and this is why I am a big proponent of streaming being the focal point, not getting rid of theatrical releases, because I enjoy those.
Yeah.
But streaming being a huge focal point because it cuts through the bullshit. It cuts through the aggregates, cuts through the Rotten Tomatoes. It cuts through the knucklehead who's waiting in the bushes to jump on a movie. It goes from content creator to you. And since you're not listening to these Cro-Mags, to try to get advice on how to spend your money, you just click on it. It's there. If you already got Netflix, you've already been getting it. You've been a Netflix subscriber for years. It's a lot easier for me to get my entertainment to you and clear out all that brush. And that's why a lot of movies, if you want to establish a brand, and then if you want to take the sequel to the big screen, go ahead. But you can't establish a base with all this noise, with all these people just waiting to destroy a movie. I mean, like I said, it didn't matter if that Madam Web trailer was the greatest thing since they split the atom. It wasn't going to matter. They already had their lines ready. They already had them written on their hands in Crayola, and they were ready to go as soon as that trailer hit. The record amount of time was like, wow,
Wait, I need to interject. Before we go any further with that, I do want to interject this real quick because this is going to give you kind of an opportunity to do a quick little mini rant. Have you seen Thanksgiving yet?
No, I did not get a chance. My schedule is so jammed up. The soonest I'm going to be able to see Thanksgiving, which is pathetic, because I think it's going to be glorious. It's going to be probably Sunday.
It looks entertaining, though. It looks entertaining.
Yeah, well,
what do you?
And
do you
I
got?
know William. his
Why? Listen. First of all, before we even go any further, fuck Cinema Score.
I mean, you're gonna B minus Cinema Score. That's not bad for the kind of movie this is. I mean, this is not like an Academy Award-winning movie.
No matter what you can insert any movie we want in there. Cinema Score. I have a
Thunder has a B plus. Like. Thor: Love and Thunder has a B plus.
What does?
Toilet paper has more value.
Yeah, but that's a bunch of bullshit. I mean, we know that already. I mean, that movie sucks.
Exactly. That's my point.
Why do we have this though? I mean, and then people put a lot of weight in this shit. That's what gets me going. You have an opinion about a movie, but the criteria that they use to come up with these things is pointless, to be honest with you.
It gets leveraged in really bad ways too.
Well, yeah. Well, if you're not into this type of movie, if you're offended by a woman being put into an oven, obviously this is not going to be the movie for you. If you're offended by gratuitous violence, which is what this movie is for, the beauty in this movie looks like, then what does some critics' Cinema Score mean to you? You know what I mean? Or aggregate? I just don't.
I think it's just a way to gauge the film. I mean, I don't put too much stock into like that or Rotten Tomatoes, but I think it gives you an idea of like a little bit about the movie. But I just take that shit with a grain of salt, But it's funny, like, when it came to Madam Web, like I felt so stupid because I watched the trailer and the entire time I was like, wait a minute, I thought Sydney Sweeney was Madam Web. What the fuck's going on? Because everything you saw from Madam Web was Sydney Sweeney. That's all you ever saw. And so when I was like, oh wait, she's not Madam Web.
She plays
Spider-Woman.
She plays technically. She plays Julia Carpenter. She plays Carpenter, right?
Yeah, she plays Julia Carpenter. Yeah,
She will be.
Right, but the whole time I thought she was the main character, right? And so when I saw the trailer, I was like, I didn't even know the girl from 50 Shades of Grey was in the movie. And so I was like,
oh no, she was the first one I knew about.
Yeah, I was like, damn, I feel fucking stupid.
The thing for me is like I think probably the more good faith critic, and yeah, I'm gonna go back to Thanksgiving real quick. The reviews I've watched, it's fantastic. Yeah, I saw Thanksgiving last night. It's like if you're interested in a holiday season themed slasher movie, you are definitely going to get your money's worth out of this, and that's really all that matters.
Yeah, baby, that's what I want to hear.
It definitely delivers the goods on everything William was really just overjoyed about on the Saturday night stream.
All 3D, baby. Death, destruction, and dismemberment.
Oh, big time! You're going to get that in this. But anyway, to go back to Madam Web, I think if people who are skeptical of it more from a good faith position, which this isn't necessarily me, but I think they might share this with me, where the only thing I was a little bit maybe found, I don't know, jarring or kind of like, when are we going to get this, is when I think of Madam Web, I associate her with like the gray-haired woman on kind of the spider throne, with the dark glasses, and of course, Dakota she's not taken on that appearance yet. I mean, obviously, I think we can all assume she, very likely will. But the fact they're holding that back does kind of I think I can see where people can, if they're not people other than what William's describing, who are just just sitting and wait, just ready to tear it apart. But I
Yeah.
can see where people are like,
Well,
well, it's like,
legit.
okay, well, like, yeah, where it's like, we're like, okay, this is Madam Web. Where's Madam Web? That's I think we're kind of more that end of it is coming from.
You can tell when you read, like I said, when you read comments and you read things, you can tell whether the Discord is legitimate. Hey, I'm looking at this trailer from a so and so perspective, and then you can tell when the other stuff comes through. I think that majority of the plot was not even centered on in that trailer, which I think that's what the second trailer will be. So,
Yeah.
like I said, will it be the greatest movie of all time? Who knows? Probably not. But it like I said, if I've seen some crappy movies that people have gone gaga over the last 3 or 5 years, and have been absolutely horrible. But they, for some reason, the man babies didn't shit on those, and it's like I just want to get inside their heads and figure out. Yeah, I saw that. I want to figure out
Who the hell is
what is the criteria. She's strange, man. I don't know.
She is.
Yeah, she's a little bit weird. But nah, I mean, it's like it's like that, and I think it hurts. And in any of my streams, all I ever do is like say, listen, you come up with your opinion about things, but the whole herd mentality when it comes to the piling on, it's like, wow, it's not even. It's like I'm reading from the same person. It's like,
it's sad too because really, especially on social media, on YouTube, it's like negativity sells so much more than positivity or just even your own point of view, and it sucks because like I know content creators that they essentially will pile on and focus on negativity because it makes them more money. And it's like it's sad. It really is. It's like, dude,
my little measly following, and just like I guess can't do it because I get that from occupational stuff. I don't need to bring that. I mean, what are we spreading? So, but yeah, I need William to see Thanksgiving. I can't wait for you. Yeah, like I said, I wish I could go see it tomorrow before the show, but my schedule is packed because it's Saturday. I generally don't cut out of the store. I mean, I'm going to be literally there till 1 a.m. Sunday morning. So I'm going to do a straight out of the theater. So I'm going to go see it at some point Sunday, and I will do a straight out of the theater. The 23rd, next Thursday. Next Thursday.
Yeah. Now, William. Now, when you or Droga, sorry. Now, when you say what is Thanksgiving, are you talking about the movie or the holiday? Well, see, the holiday, it always goes back to when the 13 colonies and the Pilgrim sat down. It's like there's a lot of history between that because America was dealing with an oppressive empire. It's not important which one it was. I'm totally stealing that joke from some comedian whose name escapes me,
but yeah, the other one is a movie that looks absolutely splendid. I cannot wait to see this. Like I said, my schedule is so tore up. I wanted to go see it Thursday night. It got it was late. Tonight we were I didn't want to do it and miss this, but and tomorrow is Saturday. Saturday to me is like churches for Sunday for people who go to church. So Sunday is a little bit laid back. All I got is football. It's pretty much
football. That's it for me, man. It's football Sunday. And what's great is that my kids. So my oldest son, he's 8. Now he's getting into football, so now he knows. Like, hey, I would ask him, "Are we gonna watch a Niner game?" Yeah, let's do it. And he wants to watch it with me, and because it's fun. And
I got into sport with my dad, man. Spend some time. That's how me and old man watching Dodgers, watching Vin Scully, listening. A lot of times we would listen because baseball to me is one of those sports you could listen to as much as watch.
It's the only game that you can listen to. And it does not have an effect on the game itself in terms of like watching it or listening to it because there's only so many ways a pitch inside will look like, a check swing will look like. So it's like it's the only game that you can verbally describe what's happening and be able to, use your imagination to really watch the game and get a different perspective of it as well. It's listening to a baseball game it's priceless. I love it. Any other sport, it's kind of funky. Like football, not that great. Basketball, not that great. Yeah.
No, it's actually my fault. Like I said, my schedule's been crazy 24/7.
I was close because I was kind of undecided whether or not because I had I had a belt test today at my dojo. I did a few hours ago, and between that, just needed to kind of get work all squared away today before that. I was thinking like, should I go or should I not go Thursday? But I did decide, screw it, I'm going because I was ready for it myself, and I wanted to
There
be
you go.
able to share my thoughts on it. Everything was very streamlined, and I'm built up now, as I showed on my Twitter earlier, in specifically American Tongue Pseudo. This is new art I've been started in back in January, but I mean, people in the chat kind of know my background a little bit. I've been training all told about 21 years, but that's a facet of my life that's kind of been so important to me. It's like I gotta, when I got I really gotta get focused.
We got our own Bart Simpson in the chat. Rappy, Rapita. Jeez. That's from your side. The weirdos are all coming from the side.
No, I'm not on Facebook. I'm not. It's got to be from yours.
Thank you, Ruth.
Oh Lord.
I don't stream to Facebook. I actually avoid Facebook altogether.
Thank you, Aaron.
I have an account that I talk to my family with, but like my extended family. But other than that, I really don't mess around.
I got a business page and I broadcast this on the business page.
I got my Facebook, and it's like, the weird thing is that, because again, I use it here and there, and part of it is also work related, as far as Facebook. And the weird thing is, it's like it wasn't like a conscious decision for me, like primarily move over to Twitter and Vero. It's just that really I think it was kind of a byproduct of the Snyder Cut campaign, because so much of it was kind of focused there, and I just sort of centered there, and kind of didn't really that's like, oh, I'm at home here now.
I resisted Twitter with I mean, I had Twitter longer than I had anything. It was MySpace, and then once MySpace went away, I had Twitter. And I avoided Twitter like the plague. The only reason I jumped into Twitter is because when I started doing this, a lot of the people that I were in contact were pretty much exclusively on Twitter, where I was more of an Instagram guy, a Facebook guy. But it became a necessity. But yeah, Twitter, I've always tried to stay away from Twitter. Most of my posts are pretty vanilla as far as like I'm putting out certain information. I'll put out information about the store. I'll put out information about what we're doing here, and then I'll throw an opinion. I mean, like I said, when I saw the Madam, when I was up when the Madam web hit, and I just knew I could recite. I could recite exactly what was gonna happen, and then the same people who were if you saw Miss Marvel, if you saw the Marvels didn't like it because it was you thought it was a bad movie, okay, no problem. But you hear that same nonsense. The whole, it's like any women that's put in the front of anything, these guys just start going crazy. It's like, wow, dude, you realize that women are 50% of the population, right?
By the way,
thing too. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was going to mention real quick, because what you were saying about Twitter and dog piles and stuff like that. If you hadn't seen, it's like, of course, today being November 17th, of course, that's kind of the Snyder Cut Day. We just celebrate that in this fandom along with other dates. And I put up a thread that was addressing the ongoing, of course, interest in the resolution, completion, whatever you want to call it, of that arc.
Was that the shit show that I dreamt it would be? Was that?
I did get a lot of people giving a lot of positive reactions to that, to be sure. But I mean, it blew up. It absolutely blew up, but there were a lot of people very positive about it. And of course, I attracted some of the people who just wanted to pick a fight. And like, if that's your bag, it's like, just waste your time on it. It's like I got better things to do. I mean, I did clap back a fair amount too. So.
Where is that post? Let me find it right now. Actually, I was reading it earlier, but I was at work, so I couldn't really like fully.
So you saw me. So the one I posted with Captain America putting out the chair.
How you doing?
Let me see.
Yeah, I put the hashtags in there, so it should be easy to find.
Krypton's core.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll go more into that. Of course, in future streams, but yeah, I with it being the November 17th being the date that it is in this fandom, I thought I'd use today kind of as an opportunity to kind of get those thoughts off my chest of like, well, just to explain to people like in the fandom and outside, like, why is this still hanging around? Like, why are people still interested in this when DC Studios is doing this, Zack Snyder is doing this right now? Why are people still going after this? And I in a very lengthy thread broke down my thoughts. I feel is the better than I think I've done really on Twitter ever before, and it's like a lot of people loved it. I mean, it was probably more 80% positive, but that 20%, it's like and a lot. And the thing about it is like that 20. Thread. Yeah, and
it just keeps on going.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Well, I think it's the longest one I've ever done on Twitter, but the thing about it is like a lot of the detractors, it was like it wasn't even like I'm not like offended by it or at all. But a lot of it was really just throwing things like, well, like no, it sucks because of Martha or shit like that. It's like,
which by the way, that's another way. Other than MCU, if you come to me and you tell me you don't like the Martha scene, that's cool. But if you give me the cartoon Tom and Jerry 4th grade answer of why you didn't like the Martha scene when the way that was done, the way it was done, and the way it was done full circle with what it meant to those characters, then it's like when you're talking to somebody who's drunk and you just want to you want to be polite to him because he's having a bad day, he's hammered, but you want to get away from the bar and hopefully like talk to the girl or talk to the bartender. You make up shit just to get away. When I hear people, oh, they're both named Martha, how convenient, and not seeing the context of that exchange, and that was a little bit deeper than it was. And I'm like, you sat in the same movie theater as me, or movie theater exactly like the one I sat in, and were you even there? You paid for a ticket, but it sounds like you weren't there, and it's like that's sad because the whole Martha thing. I've always seen it. Yeah, both their mothers are Martha, but Batman. The whole thing about Batman in that particular movie is that he lost his way. He lost what made him want that sense of justice. He became what he became because he didn't want anyone else.
He lived long enough to see himself become the villain,
and exactly.
He became an orphan. When his Martha died, he was a 9-year-old, 10-year-old kid. There was nothing he can do. And he compensated for that by doing what he does. Now here he is about to watch another person become an orphan. And when he says Martha's not going to die tonight, he's basically keeping a promise that he was helpless to do anything about when he was getting. So there was a full circle. So when I hear the people, it's like, dude, I mean, wow. Is that my phone ringing? Or the empty space in between your ears, maybe that's the ringing sound. But I just want to get away from that conversation. So like there's those keywords MCU. It's like, oh wow, look at the time. When they start making fun of them, when they start making fun of Martha, there's the keywords where it's like, wow, you know what, it's good seeing you again or good hearing from you again. I gotta go.
One of the big reasons why I really want to type that out today, aside from it, November 17th being the significance of that in the fandom, is I also wanted to really kind of address kind of the delineation or the discussion of what's like, well, Zach is occupied with Rebel Moon right now, so like why are fans still chasing after this while he's doing this over here? And I really wanted to, within that thread,
I got more than one brain cell and I can do more than one thing.
That was so I want to touch upon that. And actually RJ has one I want to go ahead and bring up here that kind of gets on that. So my mind is focused on the future of DC and Zach looks future Netflix better resolution. Yeah, and RJ was able to say that without being jumping in my thread and being a total dick about it.
Yeah, no, I mean resolution's one thing, and I think there's there's a couple ways that we can get resolution in that story, and the fact that there's a lot of pushback when it comes to the idea of doing it like a graphic novel or animation.
Not here.
I know.
I
know
that. You are biased, William. Let's be clear, though.
Yes,
yeah,
I am.
But this is actually a perfect example, William. If they were going to release a Zack Snyder Justice League Part 1 and Part 2 as a graphic novel, don't you think there'd be a ton of pre-orders for those issues?
Yes,
fuck yeah.
Dude, okay, let me tell you this. The comic book, the Justice League one that they did when Zack Snyder's Justice League actually came out, where they had the different
covers.
And they weren't even, the inside was nothing to do with it, right? Those sold out in a heartbeat. Those sold out around town. There's an industry out there for it. And here's the thing, get it out there. I don't care if it's claymation. I don't care if it's sock puppets. Get it out there. Once you get it out there, let it dictate the conversation. And then hey, listen, you're just selling 100,000 copies or whatever, and then let it go from there. Get it out there. Graphic novel, it's a comic book movie. Why would anybody? I know we have these motion picture things going on, but it's a comic book movie. Let it start, let it finish in a graphic novel, and let somebody adapt it down the line. But at least
absolutely.
That's what Andre, I think you said once or twice previously on streams, is that if you put it out in graphic novel form and it it does bananas as we would expect it would, then that just would that not create more of an impetus for WB to say, oh hey, this did crazy, let's get this on film now.
Well, not even that. I mean, if you put it on a graphic novel and it does gangbusters, right? It just fucking sells out, really, really popular.
Which it would. I mean, that's. I don't
right.
think there's.
And then what does that do? It sparks the idea of, well, hey, what if we did an animated movie? Yeah, let's do that. And then they do that, and then they go, fuck, this is so good, this is so popular. Let's make a live action. You know what I mean? But here's the problem with live action, obviously, is that the actors are getting older, the actors are getting more expensive. And time is what's working against you when it comes to doing a live action. But I think the thing that people fail to realize is that, like, it's not always about, like, hey, no, this has to be live action, live action, live action, live action. When we push for the thing called artistic integrity, the idea is that, like, giving Zach the chance to tell his story in those mediums is another form of artistic, integrity, artistic expression. Let's hear the story. Let's get it out there, and let's see how it was supposed to go. And then you see the reaction from the fans and from the general audience. But when you hold it hostage by saying no, live action or nothing, you limit everything. It's so ridiculous. That mindset.
To your point there, Andre, about like the time factor. I mean, I think that's partially why William has also suggested like giving it, like putting like a Kingdom Come makeover on it, but because that involves older versions of the characters. I mean, I think everybody would agree, like Cavill in the Kingdom Come suit would just, I mean, that's just no brainer. And Affleck is already basically the Dark Knight Returns Batman. I mean, he is the Dark Knight Returns Batman.
50-year-old Batman now, and guess what? Ben Affleck is 52 years old. But here's the thing, and this is what I don't want the industry to do, and I always say this. Guys like me, if you're going to stay in business with the general audience, I'm not your general audience. I'm a little bit further on. I'm a dork. And these extremists that gives the ultimatums, they can never, ever, and then the move on crowd, neither one of those edges can ever factor into your decision making. Money is in the middle. What can you sell to a general audience? Now, if this thing has become the Bigfoot that the general audience know, it's become jokes for people who came in through it that way.
It's a Barbie joke.
But when you cross over that pop culture thing, you would invigorate comic books. You get those speculator guys, but this time it would be actually something worth buying. Speculator people involved. You're getting brand new people into comics. You're getting brand new people buying anything but Batman, which is all DC can move right now. You're getting people into that story, and you're getting a barometer about it. So the people are like, well, it has to be live action or not. They're not part of my decision making. I'm not part of my decision making because I'm biased and I'm out there. I'm not as far as out there the ultimatum people, and I'm nowhere near the move on people. But I'm not in the middle. But the average fan is where you need to go. Will the average fan be interested in the story? And the easiest way to do it, is to print out graphic novels, print out comics, let it make the news. And let it go.
And that's what the push should be at, though. I mean, the push should be to get it as a graphic novel, because if there was ever a time to do it, now would be the time, because you have Jim Lee, who is overseeing all of DC Comics, who literally helped him. He helped him write the original storyboards. And like Brad was just saying, he did the art for the Full Circle shirt. And so, like, if there was a big enough push from the fans to get a graphic novel made, now is the time, because Jim Lee was a part of it. Jim Lee, respects Zach, and he'd be the guy to say, hey, you know what? We're going to do this. Like, let's fucking do it. Or at least get the ball rolling.
With everything you both have said there, I mean, because I actually want to bring up a couple comments here. And also, it's like I knew we were definitely going to go down this rabbit hole of Snyderverse stuff, but I mean, we do have a thing.
So it's tough.
But one thing to kind of wrap it up on that topic, I did want to also mention real quick. It kind of goes to what you were saying, Andre, about the creative freedom aspect of it. It's actually one reason why I usually prefer, whenever I bring it up on Twitter or on streams, I usually don't get so much into the conversation of what format it would or could or should take, because I do feel that's a decision that is best left to the captain of the ship, which would be Zack Snyder in this case. So, from my angle, it's like the way I've always advocated for it is really just fandom just showing the interest in general of the story being finished or presented, and it's like, and letting them see that that's still hanging out there as something for them to the studio or for DC to cash in on, in whatever way, and just let them kind of decide the logistics of it, because we're as William says, it's like you go for the money that's in the middle, but you don't let the fringes dictate that.
Fourth, you present something to David Zaslav that means turning a profit. That's going to be a 5-minute conversation, because he's going to when it comes to that division of Warner Brothers, he's not going to get in Jim Lee's way. If Jim Lee came to him and what Zack Snyder came to him, let's do this, he's not going to. I don't see much.
Let's just hope he doesn't turn into a tax write-off.
Yeah,
no, exactly. Because the comic book division is what it is. But I don't think David Zaslav is going to turn any of his stuff or any of the stuff that under his helm into a write-off. All the stuff that's been written off has been stuff he inherited. So I don't think we have anything to worry about.
Yeah, it's everything he inherited. And even when it comes to that, it's like the fact that he did it once with Batgirl,
with Batgirl, and what was Scoob? I think it was the second. Yeah.
Scoob 2, and then they tried to do it again, but this time they got called out. Everyone exposed them for doing that, and they were like, "Okay."
God, the memes were so hilarious on that.
Like, okay, let's just license it out. Screw it, because they got called out. They're like, "Crap!" Like they caught us this time.
I don't think they should have. Listen, they're probably going to end up writing this off anyway, because there's a good chance that they're not going to get the money that they want. And to be honest with you, the people that are calling them out once, and I said this a couple of days ago, they're doing it with their emotions, and emotions don't keep the lights on. Money does. And this is a tool. It is a limited tool that when you acquire a company this way, you have a limited amount of time to be able to use this tool that he's using. And you're talking about things that in all actuality, and I know I'm going to get heat for this, most of which should have never been made. There should have never been a Batgirl movie to cancel. With Warner Brothers and with the revenue and with what they don't want to spend on their animation division, if Zaslav had been in charge when these decisions came to his desk, we wouldn't be having this conversation, because none of them would have been greenlit.
And so that's the thing too, is that Hamada, I mean, as dumb as the idea was, I mean, he was trying to keep the ball rolling. And I'm not trying to excuse him, at all. But the idea of having, Keaton come back as your main Batman,
great idea for the Flash.
Yeah, as a one-off, that's fine. Like, that's cool. And here's the thing: if you brought back, which ended up being a one-off, but if you brought back Keaton as a one-off for the Flash, as a way of replacing a Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Thomas Wayne character, instead you went that route, to me, that's a cool idea. Hey, why not? But the problem with the Flash was that there was just so many flaws in the story, and you could tell that it had been hacked to shit. And it's sad too, because Muschietti, he worked through the whole way through 3 different regime changes. I mean, it's just crazy. But the original plan that Hamada had in place, I mean, it's funny because everyone, was against him. And then when some of these fans found out that, he was going to bring back Cavill later on in the Crisis movie, and then he was going to have more Ben Affleck's Batman. I wanted to see that. That's a good idea. It's like, okay, now that's cool? No, it wasn't going to be cool. And here's why. It was never going to be good, because it never would have lived up to our expectations. If we would have had, let's say, even James Gunn continue on with the characters that are already established, Ben Affleck as Batman, Henry Cavill as Superman, you're gonna get those characters under the regime of either James Gunn or whoever would be in charge of DC. You're not going to get the Zack Snyder version of those characters. So those characters would never live up to our expectations, and they would always fall short.
And so I think would be something we probably would.
Well, I mean, William, you said also it's like you've kind of come to the conclusion. And of course, we've discussed this a lot, amid our talk about the Flash, also, which we both, were, I think we're both much bigger on than Andre was. But you said, you were kind of at the point where this point, you would not want anybody handling Zack's Justice League or Zack's Justice League story other than Zack at this point.
Yeah, no, just like I wouldn't want James Gunn handling any of his stuff other than James Gunn, because now that you looked at it and you look at the contrast that we've had in the last 5 years. If you were going to do it, it would need to be distinctly his, and that's the thing about it, is that's why I advocate for, certain things like Kingdom Come. I think Kingdom Come would have been a good general audience send off. I think that's what should have happened first, because like I said, people tell me to focus on the future of DC. And when you got to remember, people, when they say, well, you guys should focus on James Gunn, remember what I always say. You're talking to your customer, and your customer does not have to do shit. It is completely up to them whether they want to buy into this. And there's a lot going against all this. And it doesn't have anything to do with the quality of what James Gunn can produce. He has walked into a circumstance, not all of his own, some of it of his own, some of it's been missteps by Zaslav.
It's probably 80-20.
Yeah, so it's not. I don't. There's just, in the ground is for DCU is as shaky as the ground that DCU was on, perhaps even shakier, because you've been purchased by a much smaller company now at a loss of 30-something billion, and now your stock is being dragged down by that debt, and now you have you have all these things that are going on. You have stockholders who you had to go through a lot to get to do this purchase, to create this company. What's inside their heads? Forget about what the fanboys said.
And you just had 2 strikes slow you down by about 6 to 8 months.
Oh man, big time.
So, and now,
real quick, guys. Sorry to interrupt. I did want to, because I've had Ruth's comment here hanging up for a minute. So, and I saw Ruth. You went through earlier and liked all that and retweeted. And Brad, I thought it was very interesting. Actually, you realized by the fans in such fashion. Yeah, that was kind of part of the point of it. So that's why, and of course why I put it up today. So, and Error, and also say, I just finished reading your thread, Brad. It was absolutely amazing. Yeah, thank you. Love all the positive feedback. I mean, I had a few trolls.
Yeah,
you got a few who were probably cavemen, but the positive feedback I got. So yeah, I did want to kind of highlight those quick. And because like I said, I knew we were going to go down the Snyderverse rabbit hole. As I say, it's like it's such an elephant in the room. It just kind of comes back constantly. But I didn't want to, again, we have other things to do. So,
I mean, I'm looking forward to what James Gunn's going to do with DC. I'm hopeful that because obviously it's going to be something completely different than what we've seen before. I think that going in hindsight, if they would have let Zach just do his thing, they would have had a much better run than what they ended up getting, and we would be in the same exact spot we are now.
Yeah, it'd be this spot without all the baggage and the heartbreak and the
exactly.
Yeah.
And a much better.
You would have had a true Flashpoint movie that would have led to a reset of the DCEU, which could have been DCU at that point, and then you still could have had a James Gunn or somebody else take over at that point. What's this? Andre, how are you? Aren't you on the sci-fi? Oh, he's on my channel now talking to me.
Yeah,
Stroga. Yeah, I am. This is the multiverse crossover.
Yeah. When it comes to James Gunn stuff, I'm interested and I'm intrigued. And some of the stuff the word excited is not. I'm not there yet. I'm 20 months away from Superman Legacy. That may as well be 2,000 years. I am even further away from the things I'm actually more interested in when it comes to Supergirl Worlds of Tomorrow. We're probably 3 years away from that. When it comes to Green Lantern, when it comes to James Mangold, see, these things are so further away. And right now, like I tell Brad, I'm closer to the yacht you set on fire than the cruise ship that you're promising me.
And what
you're telling me, good.
Yeah. And what you just said there about the ones you're looking for. I mean, the biggest one for me really is Mangled on Swamp Thing, because it's like, I mean, I don't even need that to be. I mean, yeah, put it in a in a cinematic universe or a DC cinematic universe or not, but it's like the Logan guy on the Swamp Thing, that just writes itself to me.
Yeah, and then Wonder Woman, the Paradise Lost thing, but these are things that are way down the line. And given the history of of how these things work, I have no faith or guarantee that any of these things are going to happen beyond Superman Legacy. And if Superman Legacy, if we're dealing with, and I always say this, if David Zaslav has made the case to his stockholders that this is going to be a lot of bloodletting, this may be harder than you guys realize. If he's made that case and they still bought into it, then we have all the time in the world. But if it's the normal case, whereas when are we going to get a return on this investment? Not only of this company we paid, but all this stuff. You told me if he told them that, hey, he gave them the bullshit BBS should have made $1 billion garbage, then we're in trouble, because you've now set stupid ass expectation with people who are not in the fandom. These are hedge funds.
Now, I mean, now
These
they
are-
wish they were making BBS money.
Yeah, but you've now
I know, right?
yeah, you've now given that expectation to people who are not going to buy. Well, just give James Gunn a chance. Don't give a shit about that. They invested this much. They want this much back. And if he didn't make the case that, hey, this is going to be a lot slower than that, then we could be dealing with the same situation that we've been dealing with the last 10, 11, whatever years. So
well, it's just going to be a different point of view, from coming from James Gunn, and I think that, the fact that just recently they announced that an actress that was cast to play one of the members of the Authority. And so already in this world, I mean, look, he's investing a lot of, energy into developing the Authority, which is a group that like not a lot of fans know about. And so it's interesting that he would.
And it's got a lot of comparison with The Boys already.
Yes, but here's the thing, though, is that even like I get the comparisons, but I don't see an Authority movie coming out that's going to be as violent as The Boys, because you're still trying to appeal to the general audiences, and you're still trying to appeal to that younger demographic. Because you look at what Zach did, right? Zach was making a more of a serious movie that, the way Zach makes movies, nothing like the way that Marvel was doing their movies, right?
Yeah.
So now is James Gunn going to come in and start making these serious movies that are darker? And no, I don't think so. But I don't see him making an Authority movie where they're cutting people's heads off, and I mean, unless you're going to do it in the same vein as like Suicide Squad or the Suicide Squad,
which the first 10 minutes of that is just a bloodbath.
Right. But then does that limit your viewability in terms of like who can watch this movie, right? Now, by doing a film like that, you're saying, okay, so none of the kids can go see this because it's going to be, super violent. We're going to love it. Or no, I should say love it. We're going to be interested in seeing the violence, but our kids going to see that. And so when you're talking about DC Studios that's attached to a bigger company such as WB, when do they start putting their hand in and saying, hey, this needs to be lighter tone. Hey, this needs to appeal to a wider audience. Hey, we need to sell toys and merchandise. And then how does he balance that? How does he, create his stories, but still, does it with the appeal of, the major studio, who he says does not have any say in what they're going to make. But at the end of the day, I think, yeah, they will have some say in what stories and how he makes these stories and how he presents them.
Especially based on the results, because like I said, Zaslav has bosses.
Yes.
He has a chairman of the board who can.
I don't think Zaslav's going to be around too much longer, to be honest.
Yeah,
no, I don't either.
He has bosses, but the shareholders are going to be like I said, the same conversation we're having with each other right now, and what we have with the fandom, is not the same conversation that's going to be had in that boardroom. So a lot of it's going to be dictated on. It may, like I said, if the right conversation was had, it may not. But if the wrong conversation, if it BVS it needs to make should have made a billion type conversation was had, then now you're on the clock with your very first movie, and there's a good chance that Superman Legacy is not going to be.
I could see another kind of. This wouldn't necessarily be a 1-to-1 to what you're saying, William. I could see, but this would be so much monetary, but I could see they maybe like the expectation would be more along the lines of, we're expecting Gunn to give us something that generates the kind of popularity, enthusiasm that he got with Guardians, and it's like if they don't get like that kind of response, then that's like could be what would give them cold feet.
Yeah, and like I said, they're not going to be able to be reasoned with like we are. I'm not going to be able to walk into the boardroom and say, you know what, Marvel had before Guardians, Marvel had one of the most successful franchises going before even a mention of Guardians of the Galaxy. They're not going to want to hear that. We're not going to be able to reason with them about the entire machine that was built and the faith in the machine that was built and the adjustments in the machine. That we're not going to hear that. They're going to say, well, you have this. We gave you this money. We put a lot on the line to purchase this company based on these IPs and stuff. A lot of IP that you said you could do, and you brought in this guy. You told us this. I mean, like I said, it depends on what kind of conversation we've had. Because if Superman Legacy makes $500 million and the expectation is more, then that's all it's going to take to really start, making that ground start to shift under people, and not just James Gunn, David Zaslav as well.
Yeah, and it's almost like this, like, however he chooses, however he puts out Superman Legacy, right? If Superman Legacy flops, and I'm not saying it will, if it doesn't if it doesn't meet the expectations of Warner Brothers, then you may get more studio intervention because of the fact that it was not as successful as they wanted it to be. If it comes out and it does, $800,000, I'm sorry, $800 million.
If it does $800,000, that's it.
Is going to get old.
I know it's going to be good, but like if it has a successful box office, then that's going to allow James Gunn and the creatives that are going to be a part of this DC Studios to kind of do what they want to do as long as their films are successful. It's when they start to struggle that things will change, that the clamps will be put down more on them to say, hey, what are you doing with that? How are you handling this? This has to be, we need to check the boxes on some of this stuff. So it's interesting to see how they're going to do it because, he has a very distinct style, James Gunn. And they basically let him do whatever he wanted to do in the Suicide Squad, which is a film that I wasn't a huge fan of because at the end of the day, I kind of felt like it just didn't have much to it.
See, to me, I liked it, but in that same sentence, and this is what I always say about the Suicide Squad.
You don't think it should have been made?
It never even been made.
Exactly, it should have never even been made. And so when I was watching it, I was like, there are parts that I liked. And there were aspects that I liked, but at the same time, I was like, why are we doing this right now? And on top of that, it related to nothing else that was coming out after.
Because it's not only that, but I mean, you have things like, I suspect this is something Gunn would have liked to have actually included, his subsequent, stuff that he's done with DCC is notwithstanding the whole thing about like Bloodsport put Superman in the hospital with the kryptonite bullets. Like I would imagine he would have liked to have actually had the flashback showing that, and he couldn't do that because Hamada was stonewalling more Cavill.
Yeah.
And things like that. I mean, look, there are things that James Gunn has done that he was able to get away with in terms of like Hamada not trying to stop him. Like, for instance, what you said about Bloodsport putting Superman in the ICU, right? I thought that was to even include that. I thought was a little risky because you're like, wait a minute. So in terms of continuity and timeline, where does this kind of fall into place? And you'll never really know. But then when you look at Peacemaker, okay, so at the end of Peacemaker, spoiler alert, most of the Justice League show up. Now, some of them are you can't see their faces, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of fans were like, how could he do that? That was so whack. That was lame. They had no faces. That was stupid. The one thing that I did say, and I thought I didn't really care for it because I was like, if you can't have them there, then why do it? But it takes balls to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to have all of them show up, as many as I can, and I'm going to give fans that scene. So to me, that says a lot about him as about his character, that he wanted to give the fans a Justice League scene, but was limited by the studio. I mean, they even had
limited for
Batman
the stupidest reasons.
Yeah, like they had
a Batman, they had a Cyborg, and they digitally took them out.
Yeah, and they had to remove them because they were like, yeah, no. And it goes to show you that like he was trying to give the fans more of what they wanted as best as he could. But the studio, the studio came in and probably said, no, you cannot use these characters, get rid of them. And it sucks.
And now he's the head of the studio. Listen, I actually, I think he's a fan. I think under the right circumstances, this is the guy. This is the guy that we would have had no matter what. If the Snyder thing would have resolved professionally, then we would have probably had a guy like this anyway, because I don't think Zack Snyder was going to go on to do 30 some odd movies. So we would have had to come to this choice anyway. I think what hurts Gunn, and I think what really hurts him is that it's the perception of it's the perception of settling, and two, when you talk about the middle swath of the universe here, the ones that are going to make you 98% of your money, they've been given every reason to not pay attention to what's been going on in DC. And as time goes by, that apathy sets in, and now your first couple of movies are going to take the hit until people re-engage. And so when fourth act here, what does Gunn's movie have to accomplish logistically to justify the reboot? Make more than the Zack property? Yes. It all depends on who we're talking about too. If we're talking about fans, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because we don't pay for shit. If we're talking about the people who pay all these people and are paying for the stuff, then unfortunately, and I don't agree with this, that $1 billion phantom is in the room. The reviews will be up there, but I think the money will be paramount. The reviews put money on the table. So the reviews I don't think are going to mean as much because if the movie if Superman Legacy comes out and makes $1 billion and it gets a B- on cinema waste or a 50% on I don't think we're as dumb as we were back in 2016 when you had an $871 million movie and you found a way to make that a failure. You found a way to perceive that as it had a 70% drop. So fucking what? The final math,
and we had
5
years of chaos. We had nothing but chaos since then because of the reaction to that. And by the way, real quick, I'm sorry, I got to interject here, but Ruth is because I got to give this to her while she's taking off real quick for Christine. Is that everyone have a fantastic evening? I'm off Christmas shopping, but we'll listen to the drive into town. Love you all so much. So
thank you, Ruth. Thank you.
As I said, I'll give you a British one, so there you go.
This whole thing started because we let a combination of bad management and fanboys turn an $871 million into failure because of stupid expectations. Now, if you look at it, you haven't had a DC movie break 400 million in quite some time now.
Yeah.
So we didn't know.
Black Adam just about did it though.
Yeah. We didn't know what success was. Hopefully now, even with, the hedge fund people, having as much leverage, that we're much smarter as far as that. But I don't think, like I said, I think the $1 billion ghost needs to go out of the room. I think that
I do my best, Droga.
I would hope that if they're going to do this movie, they need to be bracing for a loss. I actually think that there's a good chance that Superman Legacy will lose money because you can't make it cheap. You can't make it cheap. If you do pick and save Superman, you're basically telling your fans what you think about one of your major IPs. You got to put your money where your mouth is. So I think it's going to be a relatively expensive movie, probably a little bit more expensive because it's got to look good. The CG, everything's got to be perfect with it.
He's also got a pretty sizable ensemble he's putting into it as far as like he's got authority characters. He's got like Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, and Mr. Terrific and Metamorpho. So I mean, it's a Superman led movie, but I mean it's an ensemble of a lot of DC characters in a lot of ways.
And also more so than anything, and we work with Warner Brothers on a lot with as far as their promotions and everything else. Like we were just showing last night that ridiculous Justice League campaign that didn't include Superman. So we were constantly going with Warner Brothers promotion. This will probably be, if they do this the way they need to, their most expensive ad campaign, because not only are they promoting a movie, they're bringing people back that they've allowed to drift away. They're bringing back the common man who's gone on to so many other things. Forget about us. We're going to be there. The hardcore geeks, us 1 or 2%ers, we're going to be there. The ad campaign is going to matter to us. The ad campaign that they're going to have to deliver is going to bring back the common man. And that, I'm telling you, that is probably going to be DC's most expensive ad campaign for this line.
And you said, I mean, you talked about like when they were promoting the Flash with you. I mean, you said they were really hot. They were really enthusiastic about that. Which again, it's like I would largely attribute to the unfortunate situation with like how that turned out financially with them pulling the plug on the franchise when they did. But kind of going back to Gunn and Peacemaker real quick, I did want to kind of touch upon this a little bit because this is a theory I've had going on when when Gunn responded to a fan that we may know on Instagram. Is of course Mr. Phil Barker. It was about a month or so ago, and he answered the question of how is your universe going to address Peacemaker season 1 taking place in one universe and season 2 taking place in another? And he says that is touched upon in season 2, which suggested my interpretation of that. I could be wrong here, but the way I kind of read that, and I'm sure this will be music to Williams' ears, is that is a mechanism for he's implementing doorways for multiverse / Elseworlds through that by having Peacemaker season 1, DCEU, Peacemaker season 2 DCU, and I was kind of wondering what your thoughts are on that, and just on on that theory I have that like Peacemaker is kind of the vector or one of the vectors for for Elseworlds, for multiverse, for things of that nature.
Not going to happen, Ford. Not going to happen.
No, he's just being forced. He's just being forced.
Yeah. When I know a lot of people are thinking that they don't have to spend a big budget. Here's the thing. That's not up to them anymore. You know what's up? You know why? Because the atmosphere and the precedent set by top tier comic book movies is already dictated. So if you come to the party, if you come to the wine and steak party with some bologna and cheese, you're not getting in. Your movie will be judged by the standard that both DC and Marvel have set for their top tier characters. If you try to go pick and save, oh my goodness, I will never hear the end of that. We will never hear the end of that. It looks like CW, dude. These people compared the Madam Web thing to CW, and trust me, CW hurts my eyes.
Other than Superman Lois, he lets
the only thing that they spend money on.
But going back to what I was saying about Peacemaker, I was kind of wondering what both your thoughts were on that, as far as that being my theory about Gunn's comments about how that is going to be addressed in the transition from season 1 to season 2.
It's gonna be weird how they're gonna do that. They're either gonna do it tactfully or they're just gonna do it like, kind of nonchalantly joke about the fact that they were in another universe. I think they had a great opportunity to do so with the Flash. The Flash should have set a new flashpoint, and then that would have started the DCU. But I think the fact that Aquaman was going to come out after the Flash because it wasn't ready to come out before the Flash, that kind of that really fucked everything up. I have no idea how Gunn's going to handle. Basically describing how Peacemaker season 1 was in the DCEU and now season 2 is in the DCU, because you haven't had that event that creates the multiverse. Unless you're saying that the Flash created, a new Flashpoint. I don't know. It's just so weird when you have the Flash.
I don't even think you need to do that. I mean, I think you could just, it could be as simple as something like, just Peacemaker just like walks through a portal or something, and then he's like, oh, well, now I'm over here. Like, what the hell is all this about?
They've already done it. When you see George Clooney as as Batman or as Bruce Wayne, then he's already done any that. You don't have to know the details. You just need to know that things are not what they're supposed to be, and that could entail Peacemaker. That can entail almost everything. He could always go back and say, and remember the whole spaghetti thing, because because you saw George Clooney being the one thing that changed doesn't mean there's a bunch of consequential things that could change. So that'd be easy for him to explain. Peacemaker second season is so far away, and like I said, a lot of this stuff is how long am I supposed to keep this steam for things that are basically 1,000 years away?
It's been pushed back further through no fault of its own because of the strikes.
Yeah, and it's like, damn. And I don't even know. And here's the thing. Here's a caveat. I can't assume that I'm going to like this. I mean, because even my most favorite directors have put out stuff I don't like. So,
we don't know for sure how good it's going to be. But I mean, for me, it's like we can't pass judgment on Superman Legacy or James Gunn's DCU until we actually see the product. And people want to already label it as, it's going to be a flop. He's going to get fired. It's going to be a lot of fart jokes. It's going to be this. It's going to be that. But
the fart jokes, but here's the thing, though. The situation lends towards that, though, because the only evidence you've had.
We don't know. We don't know.
You don't know, but here's the thing: when you don't know, the logical assumption for decent-minded people is
true.
What has this company, what has this label given me? They've given me nothing but instability, firing people, replacing people, and their movie's not doing well. So for somebody to make the assumption that all of the above could happen to James Gunn is a logical assumption. Whether it's fair or not, it's not even relevant. It is a logical assumption that money is still green, and the people who like that money, that put the money on the line, will dictate a lot of things that fans don't. Nobody has to give James Gunn the benefit of the doubt. Now, I agree with you. You shouldn't pass judgment, but it's also a flip side. Nobody really has to give him the benefit. There's nothing out there right now, DC-wise, to give him the benefit of the doubt, but there's also nothing out there to come down on him like that. So right now, we're kind of in this in-between limbo thing, but the tiebreaker goes to what has gone before. Even though if it's a different regime, it's still the same structure. There's still, if the expectations are as ridiculous as they were when we started all this, it doesn't matter that it's a different regime because you're putting people in unfair situations. If Superman, like I said, if they think Superman Legacy needs to make a certain amount, and he goes out and makes a banger of a movie, and it's great, and it doesn't make what they think they make, and they don't see the return on their investment, it's very logical for people to think that James Gunn will get removed or David Zaslav or any of these guys for any various situation. It's not out of the realm that could happen because results matter.
Well, speaking of financial woes, I did also want to bring this up because, I mean, I think this is probably fair to say this is Marvel's biggest financial nightmare. And it's definitely, I've said to William, it's like, well, maybe people finally stop picking on the Flash now. So, but I saw this earlier. And Marvel's crossed 120 million at the box office. The movie had 270. So yeah, I kind of wanted to ask both of you, like, what are your thoughts on like why the Marvels is doing? So at this point, I don't know that it's going to outperform the Flash and the Flash 270. So, and again, the Captain Marvel, the first one was released under much more favorable circumstances than the Flash was because the Flash, William and I have said, it came out. It was something we were very enthusiastic about, but it was put out under circumstances that were just not beneficial to it. Whereas Captain Marvel was the exact opposite. It was right in the middle between Infinity War and Endgame. It had every reason to do the business that it did. We're going to hit $1 billion, and now the sequel is just completely falling flat. So yeah, where do you think? Why do you think this struggle is?
I mean, look, I did a video on it where I sort of ripped into it. I called it trash because
yeah, I know you hated the movie.
Sort of ripped into it. It's trash right across the bag.
I didn't hate the movie. Like the first half of the movie, I actually liked. It was the second half that completely fell off the face of the earth. I was just like, dude, what the fuck are we doing here?
And it wasn't MCU stuff, to be clear, William.
No, I had nothing to do with that. Like,
no, I read it.
No. But what I'm saying is that like my review for the Marvels wasn't based on girls or whatever. I don't care about that. I based it on the story, and I based it on the science of it. Like none of it made any sense to me. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. That's a plot hole. I don't understand that. And so when those things keep popping up, then it doesn't allow me to enjoy the film. When I watch a show like The Book of Boba Fett, and I keep seeing just sloppy, lazy writing and bad character representation, especially of Boba Fett, then it doesn't allow me to really enjoy it because I'm just like, I keep seeing all these inaccuracies or these bad writings. And so when you get to the Marvels, especially the second half, when they get to the singing planet, I was just like, oh my God, what are we doing here? If you cut that out and the cat scene, this movie's only like 120 minutes long. I'm like, so it goes to show you that there wasn't a strong enough story to begin with. And if there was a better story, they cut that shit right out. And it's sad because
Drogo's throwing some shade here.
No, that's not me. You're thinking of Ryan, not me. But the thing too is that why was the Marvels, why has the box office, not been, has been so low, right? To me, it has nothing to do with the movie itself. I think the problem that you're having is you have a massive disconnect because of COVID. Okay, the pandemic,
yes,
because of the writer's strike. You had this massive disconnect. When I watch the Marvels, I can easily see how massive amounts of the general audience didn't know what the fuck was going on. Had to be reminded of where we left off in Captain Marvel. Had to be reminded of how Monica Rambeau got her powers and who she is. Same with Kamala Khan. Not everyone in the general audience knows who she is. Not everyone watched Miss Marvel. And I think that was the biggest disconnect, was that you had to have watched all these Disney Plus shows to fully understand who these characters were. Now, they tried their hardest to try and introduce every character and kind of give you a little bit about each character. But to me, it was the disconnect and the gap between all of these movies and shows. I mean, when you look at like the movies themselves, like, you got Shang-Chi, right? And at the end of Shang-Chi, what do you see? You see Captain Marvel, the Hulk, and what's his name?
And Wong.
Wong all talking about the bracelets, right? The rings, and they're saying, "Hey, it's sending out a signal to where?" And then she goes, "Wait, something just came up. I gotta go." Right? But the problem is that everything was all these films were so far apart from each other that like nobody was able to connect any dots. So by the time the Marvels came around, it didn't feel like a film that you were like, "Hey, I want to go see that because I need to know what happens next in the Marvel Cinematic Universe." It just felt like, "Oh, that's just another MCU project that I know nothing about. I guess I can wait for Disney Plus."
Well, I like what you said about COVID. I mean, that I think that's probably a very pertinent point to raise on it because, like one point I made, previously is, I mean, really looking over this whole year, I mean, this has been a year of a lot of bombs. I mean, you had like a handful of like Barbies and, the Barbenheimer phenomenon, but I mean,
Right.
like John Wick 4 did very well, and that kind of, so you've had like a handful of big hits, and otherwise it's been largely underperformers and outright bombs, box office wise. And I think that we're finally seeing the effects of COVID on,
Yeah.
in terms of box office, in terms of movie going, really start to catch up with theaters and with studios.
It's just
I
a
think
complete disconnect. I mean, like, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it's a complete disconnect.
I'll
You
be right back,
didn't
guys.
have Okay. You didn't have the fans that felt like I need to watch the next Marvel movie because I need to know what happens next. And that was the problem. The last time I even felt that way was I don't even know. Even when I went and saw Wakanda Forever, I was like, I almost feel like if I don't watch this movie, I'm not going to miss out on anything. When I went and saw the last one I felt that had the biggest connection to anything was Quantum Mania. And that one, they actually tried to have more connective tissue to what was coming next. Here's the other problem: is that at the end of Quantum Mania, you got the end credit scene of all the Kangs, and then you got a second end credit scene that was a clip from Loki season 2, which we just got this year. But that feels like it felt like it was so far away from each other that I almost forgot that the Loki season 2 clip was at the end of Quantum Mania. I was like, holy shit, that's right. That was in that. I almost forgot because everything's been so far apart. It's just there's a disconnect, and you're losing the momentum of people wanting to see your films because it's connected to a greater universe. It's an interconnected story. You're losing that because of how far apart all these projects are. And I'm sorry, and you're losing it because due to a lot of bad writing as well.
Well, here's the thing. Out of the first 30 some odd movies that they did, half of them were mediocre to begin with. And that's at the height of MCU. They had the cover of the stuff that wasn't. Now you're seeing mediocrity and you're seeing lower tier characters without the cover of, like I always say, you don't go into the infantry doesn't go into a battle without air support. You don't go in, the bombers go in first, and they lay the foundation for the battle. Right now, you got infantry going in without those bombers ahead of you, without those fighter jets ahead of you. And this same stuff, if you can look at half of what Marvel was during their height of the Infinity Saga, it was there. This mediocrity was there. The same type of storytelling was there. They did so under the cover of the stuff that was great, of the Iron Man, of the Captain America, of the Civil Wars, of the Endgame, of the Infinity War, of the original Avengers, of the Spider-Man movies. They did so. You kept your focus was on that, and they could get away with putting out some of this stuff. But when you don't have A-listers and all your, Captain Marvel is not an A-list character. Nothing to do
Yeah.
with the Marvels is must see anything. What made all the mediocrity must see was the stuff that wasn't. For every Thor Love and Thunder or whatever, or every Thor Dark World, which is an absolutely abysmal movie, but you could get away with that kind of stuff because you had Avengers Endgame, because you had Infinity War, because you had Iron Man 3, or you had all the Spider-Man movies. You had that. You had all that stuff mixed in. People gave you the benefit of the doubt when you were putting out that kind of volume with that type of tier character. There hasn't been when's the last top tier Marvel character that's had a movie?
The last top tier, well, it's Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Yeah, and that's not even wholly theirs. And
here's the thing with Spider-Man: No Way Home. I fucking love that movie, but the problem is that when that movie ended, that sort of buttoned up Spider-Man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it didn't end with like, okay, cool, I can't wait to see the next one. I see where it's going now. It's sort of wrapped up Tom Holland's Spider-Man until they could figure out, what they could do with him. But the story itself was kind of wrapped up. I was like, oh shit. So we're gonna get back to him later, right? And so then you go to Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3. Everyone's like, yeah, this is a great movie. What does that do? That wraps up the Guardian story. That wraps up the Guardian story. And so a lot of the better films kind of had an ending for the character. Now we know Spider-Man's going to come back, and I'm not saying he's not. We know he's going to come back, but it kind of wraps things up. And so that's the part where I'm like, okay. Then you have Shang-Chi, which I actually enjoyed that movie, but at the end, it didn't really have like they went and did karaoke with Wong, and that was it. And then, which I actually thought was kind of funny, but where has he been? We haven't seen him since then. And so that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it's too much of a disconnect. Like you're not getting Doctor Strange at the end with fucking
with Charlize Theron,
she shows up
third
like,
eye,
and they jump to the portal. Like, where did they go? We haven't seen them since. There hasn't. They just haven't done a good job at connecting these, and I think it's because of the amount of shows that they're putting on Disney Plus. I think that is diluting their brand.
Would we be having this problem with any of this stuff if it were under the backdrop? If I had an Avengers movie out, if I had a Captain America movie out, if I had all this going on, you could have all this going on exactly how it is going on right now. But if I had those main players who A, did a lot of the connecting, and B, brought people to the table. Right now, you're serving me crackers and rice, but you fed me, prime rib for so many years now, and that's what I want. Once you expose a fan to that, that's what they want. That's the drug that you gave them. So not only, like I said, because they got away with a lot of mediocre shit during that 13-year period, but like I said, they had those bombers, they had those covers, and everybody gives you the benefit of the doubt. But you strip away that air support. Now you're talking about, you see it for what it's been for quite a while now, even during their hype.
I mean,
you just couldn't judge it clearly because you had the connecting tissue, and those connecting tissues were the Tony Starks, were the Steve Rogers, were the Peter Parkers, and all that.
Absolutely.
But also, you've also said, William, you don't want them to, like your Tony Starks or Steve Rogers, your OG Avengers, you don't want them to be brought back unless that was always their intent to do so.
Exactly. Don't be reactionary. But here's the thing. Here's where they have made a mistake. And I said before, they didn't have their plan ready. They did the Game of Thrones thing. When Game of Thrones went off the air in 2018 or 2019, they didn't have a next step, and they lost all their demographic. So when you get something to this point, you always should be thinking 5 steps ahead to where what's next. And they knew they had Fantastic Four, they had X-Men, they had all these things, and you knew you had to establish Spider-Man. So that gap that you're talking about shouldn't be there as much as it is. We should have rolled into those situations. And instead of that, we've had a bunch of filler. We've had filler that just doesn't attract people. FF's going to attract people. Spider-Man, the next phase will attract people. X-Men will definitely attract people. But you needed to have that game plan ready, because now you've left these otherwise, if you'd have had cover for these characters, you would be talking about you wouldn't be talking about them in this scene. It's like DC. If you'd have put out the Suicide Squad, or if you'd have put out Birds of Prey and Fantabulous, whatever the hell that was, if you'd have put that out, right?
I love that's your title for it.
Yeah, but if you'd have put these things out, these C-listers in the backdrop of an A-lister, a Batman, a Superman, things like that, or Wonder Woman, then the criticism doesn't fall on these C-listers. But now you have the bench players, and you're wanting them to be starters now, and it's just not going to work. People have been fed those A-listers.
Yeah, like when it comes to like the current Avengers team, if you want to call it that, it feels like you're not getting the Avengers, you're getting the leftovers, because all your star core, legacy characters are all gone. Like, only Thor's there, but he's not the same as he used to be.
But they've turned him into Fred Flintstone.
Yeah, and I don't like that either. I just think that whole aspect of it sucks. But I think, like I said, to me, it's the disconnect. I didn't feel like anybody who saw the trailer for the Marvels, regardless of how you feel about women and men and all that bullshit, nobody watched that trailer and thought, oh, this is the one. Like, I gotta watch this because I want to keep up with Marvel. It just felt like, you know what? Eventually, that's gonna be on Disney Plus, and I'll just watch it there.
And the advent for her too. The advent of Disney Plus.
Yeah.
It wasn't the hype.
Well, it wasn't. It was not an event movie. that people wanted to gather up, like, hey, let's all go see the Marvels. Yeah, it's cool. I want to see what happens next. No, you just didn't have that kind of momentum anymore.
Yeah. Or you didn't have an event situation either. Event, because like I said, the original Captain Marvel wasn't a great movie, but it was part of an event
but
situation.
it was an event. It was
Yeah.
packaged into an event. And this is why I feel so in the Marvel situation. I feel the worst of all for Iman Vellani, because she is by far the best. She's so great as Miss Marvel. I mean, she's just got so much energy. She actually kind of reminds me a lot. She reminds me a lot actually of Ezra Miller as the Flash, in the sense that she's they're both kind of playing characters who are fans, within their universes. They're fans of these superheroes, and they not only get to become superheroes, but they get to actually join the heroes that they've been hero worshiping.
Well, and that was the thing too, is that in the Marvels, they had that scene where Kamala told that other Skrull, "Hey, everything's gonna be fine. Captain Marvel's here. She'll take it. She'll protect us." And so there had to be that payoff at the end where Kamala realizes that Captain Marvel is not perfect. Captain Marvel does make mistakes. Captain Marvel made the mistake, and it caused all kinds of catastrophic things to happen on the planet of Hala. So they had to have that scene to kind of raise the stakes, but also kind of ground everything and to show that, like, hey, nobody's perfect, and really to show that Captain Marvel can fail and how she kind of overcomes that failure, right? But they didn't have that. They didn't do that. And in the end, not to ruin the movie or anything, but Monica Rambeau was like, you could restart the sun. It was like, wait, you didn't even think about that? Like, all this time, like, you never thought about doing it yourself? I don't get it. So there's just a lot of things that were kind of that just, to me, just felt very lazy in terms of storytelling with the movie. And that's why I wasn't a huge fan of it.
I also think, though, even given all this, the death of Marvel, that I think is a little bit. I think that's a headline grabber. You were bound. You have a $30 billion machine, and the expectations are what they are. I think, like I said, once they get to those IPs that people care about, then people will start to care about these supporting stories. It's just right now you don't have that energy, and you did it though. But I would love to be in their spot. If I was running any studio, I would love to be in the doom and gloom that Marvel is supposed to be in, because, to be honest with you, first of all, you've already proven that you can do it. I don't think Kevin Feige is dumber than he was.
It's doom and gloom that's coming after what was for a time the biggest movie ever made.
Yeah,
but you also still.
So that's a very favorable doom and gloom, is what I'm saying.
Well, no, but you also have to realize, why do you even think in this way? The standard they set by their standards, maybe. But they have it within them to control those standards. Like I said, once you get to these IPs that they have not used yet, I think they'll be fine, to be honest with you.
I mean, when it comes to the MCU, the biggest project
to get Spider-Man 4 going.
Well, Deadpool 3 is their biggest project coming up. I mean, that one has to hit on all cylinders. I think it will. That's the only one. Because what comes after Deadpool 3? We're talking about what? The Thunderbolts?
No, it's I think the next one. I think I need to look it up, but I think the next one that's going to come is Captain America: Brave New World.
Yes, so it is Deadpool 3, Captain America, the Thunderbolts, and then Blade, if it ever gets made. I don't even know what they're doing with that.
Oh, I'm losing faith by the day in Blade.
Mahershala Ali, his patience has to be.
Oh, but he's got that. Yeah, I would. Oh, he's. But I mean, he's got. I would not be surprised if he walks. As apparently he almost did.
So, but the problem too is that when you talk about Blade, right? It's like now you got to fit in that whole side of the Marvel universe, and it's like that's a lot to fit in. It almost kind of feels like Blade should have been a Disney Plus series, but you can't have it as violent because it's on Disney Plus. And so again, now we come full circle, right? When you compare what the content has to be like on Disney Plus, right? And you look at something like Rebel Moon that can do whatever the fuck it wants to do on Netflix. And I think, again, when you start having these competitors like The Boys, Invincible on Amazon, they can push the bar. They can do things that, unfortunately, the MCU cannot do, especially on Disney Plus, because they have to make it.
do that. I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I understand that's what it's always been because that formula has worked for them, the whole widely accessible things. But at some point, if you're gonna do Daredevil, isn't the pressure to do Daredevil gonna be there and not do the She-Hulkish type of thing that didn't really?
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, I actually praise Kevin Feige for essentially pumping the brakes on Daredevil Born Again and saying, okay, hold on, we're going to redo this. Basically, I think he looked at it and said, this fucking sucks. I think he was like, this is the same shit we've been spewing out for a while. This needs to be kick ass. Like, we cannot do this. And so it's like, finally he woke up and realized, fuck, I can't do that. But looking at the phase 5 of what's left of it, yeah, it's the Marvels. This is an old list. Fuck. But
Is
yeah,
that the Comic-Con list? Is that the Comic-Con list?
I don't know what I'm on some website, but
Comic-Con list that had Blade on it in 2019.
Yeah. So, but it's gonna be the Marvels, Deadpool 3, Captain America: New World Order, the Thunderbolts. Oh, then there's actually Fantastic Four. Now, and that's the other thing
they've
too,
apparently cast like 5 or 6 times already.
Right, but even with Fantastic Four, there's been a lot of rumors that Galactus is going to be the main villain.
Thank you.
Which is interesting because I mean one of the biggest villains for the Fantastic Four is Doctor Doom, and so if you, in some way or form or fashion, I think you have to introduce Doctor Doom, or maybe you don't, but you can in the Fantastic Four. But here's the thing: is that everyone's like, oh, Kang's gonna get replaced by Doctor Doom. Where are you gonna fit Doctor Doom in? To me, Doctor Doom deserves his own phase as being a villain in the MCU, not just shoehorned in and saying, okay, instead of Kang Dynasty, we're just going to make it something else. That's
reactionary.
It's exactly. And we've seen what happens when these studios get reactionary. I want Kevin Feige to say, hey, look, no, we're going to say the course. We're going to do Kang Dynasty, and then we're going to do Secret Wars, which I think Secret Wars should be part 1 and part 2. If you're going to have that many fucking characters, you're talking about the X-Men, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, who the fuck knows? If you're going to put in all these characters, then I think you have to make it a part 1 and a part 2 to give them more time to flesh out these characters and the overall story of Secret Wars.
Yeah, see, I want Galactus front and center.
And not a cloud.
Not at all. Oh my God. I would like to see, like I said, I would like to see the Fantastic Four. What I think should have happened is at the end of No Way Home, one of those, how you had all those realities that you kind of see the shades.
And like one of them,
was the FF, and they actually got through. And
because I'm pretty sure, like because like they had the Rhino, they had a whole bunch of other characters, but the Galactus would have been a good one to show.
Yeah,
but if you'd had, I would have had the Fantastic Four come in, and they would have been the tip of the spear, along with all this other stuff with the with Secret Wars and everything else. And I think with the consolidated universe would have always had them in it. But I think the Fantastic Four, X-Men, and Spider-Man, and that's, to me, that's their new access. I don't want to see any more Avengers movies after they're done with it because you gave me that.
Yes,
I had that. I enjoyed that, and I'm done with that.
I would agree. Definitely.
This might sound like a hot take too, with what I just said about Galactus, but Silver was actually pretty well done in that movie. I think. It's like the appearance, his powers. It's like he was pretty well handled for.
Oh, in the Fantastic Four,
in Rise of the Silver Surfer,
yeah, he was actually the most serious character in the whole entire movie.
He was the best thing about it. Yeah, that chase scene with him and Human Torch is awesome.
Yes, it is.
When voiced by Morpheus,
but I just think they need to stick to their guns and finish out the saga they started. Now, I know that a lot of people were like, "Oh, well." The director of Kang Dynasty, is no longer attached to it anymore. Yeah. But I don't know, that could be a sign that they are switching gears, right? Which I hope they're not. But the other way to look at it,
not.
Well, yeah, but the other way to look at it is that this guy was attached to Shang-Chi Part 2 and attached to Wonder Man, and now you're gonna have him also do Kang Dynasty. It feels like they're like, hey, look, you focus on those 2 projects, you make them as best you can. And we're going to get somebody else in here who can solely focus on Kang Dynasty because, I mean, they have to have somebody like that. And then that same director might even end up doing Secret Wars or, Secret Wars 1 and 2.
I could see them with them doing that director change. And this is presupposing that they're not, shifting gears from Kang to Doctor Doom, as William has said. We would definitely not be behind that. But I could see them calling up the Russo brothers again.
Yeah, I mean they could. I think that would be my pick for Secret Wars, especially if it's a part 1 and a part 2, which I really hope they do. Is a part 1 and a part 2. And Amy Pascal could do it as well, apparently. But here's the thing too: is that, and I'm actually, in the coming weeks, I'm gonna do a video on the 2015 Secret Wars, or 2016. Anyway, because in that one, they had Battle World. Essentially, you had the multiverse. You had universes that were colliding and combining together, and so I think they're gonna take inspiration from that and sort of start doing that. But you can't have the Hugh Jackman and all the old X-Men stick around for too long. I think you're gonna have
run their course.
Yeah, you can have a Secret Wars, badass, love it. But I think that at the end of Secret Wars, there has to be some kind of incursion that causes a new universe to be created, and that's where you get kind of a soft reset of the MCU.
Yeah, now Secret Wars in 2015, like I said, it's that other thing that if I run out of toilet paper, because basically what they did is they're their own Crisis, and for the dumbest reasons. And now, guess what they've done? Same thing that Crisis has done. We got the Ultimates coming back. So, but no, what? Yeah, I agree with all that. I think that they need to basically take what they want to keep, prune the rest, and realign everything, realign the universe to where you always had mutants, you always had a Fantastic Four. Once you create this prime timeline, or or the sacred timeline again, or recreate it, which is basically what this is all about, is to basically realign everything to basically cut the dead weight and clutter. And that's what I think they're going to do. That's the only good inspiration about Secret Wars, because I thought it was a horrible miniseries. But I do like the inspiration as far as how it plays out cinematically, though, because there's a lot of weight that Marvel has for things that they're not going to go forward with. Like I said, even if you got Captain America and Chris Evans, and there's only so far you can go with these characters, because you literally wrung everything. I could see if you got cut short, you never got stories and all that, end game pun intended, but you got it. You wring everything you could get out of these characters, and I don't know how much more you want to do more with you. If I never saw these characters again, I'm okay.
Yeah, no, and I would agree, but I think here's your other factor that no one's really talking about, is that if you do Secret Wars, right, which they've already announced that they were going to do it. So if you're going to bring in all these characters, you're talking about Fox X-Men, bringing back
Apparently
Iron
Sony
Man, bringing
again.
back Captain America. I know. Bringing back all these legacy characters, making sure that the young Avengers and the current Avengers, whatever, are going to be in this film, right? Big, massive film. Okay.
That means you can't get rid of Kang, by the way. But that's just
exactly. The only way you can do that is if they're going against an army of Kangs, because then it's the same fucking guys, Jonathan Majors or whoever the fuck is going to play the character over and over and over and over and over again. So that allows you to centralize all your attention on the heroes and not have to have like we had in 1985 Secret Wars, where you had all the villains and then you had all the heroes, and then they fought against each other. You can't have that, because that's too much time to devote to all these characters, heroes and villains. Yeah, right. If all the villains are just variants of Kang, you don't have to describe who they are. You just have to go with it.
Yeah, plus you have Iron Lad. Yeah, if you're gonna do Young Avengers, you have to do Iron Lad, and Iron Lad is Kang, and he basically has to fight himself, and knowing that he has to become Kang in order for all the stuff that Immortus, everything that does. And I love that conversation he had where he's like, no matter how much you hate me, you have to become me in order for all this stuff to happen.
Well, and going back to the Jonathan Majors situation, which I've always and I think you have too, William. It's like I've always been, whenever celebrities get into legal trouble. I mean, this is definitely the approach I take and have still maintained with Ezra Miller. Especially with the a lot of that has kind of been shown to have been greatly embellished and exaggerated. But with Jonathan Majors, I've been it's like let him have his day in court. Let's just like anybody else. But if push came to shove and they did decide they had to recast. I think that's maybe where a lot of this kind of consternation and the trepidation that Marvel is dealing with right now, as far as should they continue with Kang or not, is kind of coming from, because you look over their entire history, it's been very rare. They have, they basically, you can list on two hands as far as like major characters. They've recast Rhodey, and they've recast Bruce Banner. So I think with that, with maintaining their cast as well as they really have almost like an allergy to recasting. They really have like just such a strong aversion to it, because they have not had to do it. They've had to do it so infrequently. So I think that there is a good chance that's playing into a lot of the, should we just scrap Kang altogether and just replace him with Doctor Doom, rumors that we're hearing right now.
And see, the problem, okay, there's so many problems with that. A, it wasn't your original story, and I always say, good or bad, your story comes first. And I thought they tripped over their dicks when it came over to because forever there should have been a Black Panther, and not sure it should have been the Black Panther. Yeah. But they put other things ahead of the story. Now here they are doing it again. Now, if Doctor Doom, if you're doing this as a replacement thing, as a panic move to certain trends, then that tells me you're starting to lose faith in your own thing. And that's not a Kevin Feige. That's not, you have too much success to go down that road. Now, Doctor Doom is an escalating character that does not need to be just thrown in there. He doesn't even need to be the villain in the first movie. He can be there, and he's an escalatory. But like I said, he is such a dynamic character that you really have to do him right. And that the reason why it hasn't been done right before is because they try to give him to you all at once. Doctor Doom is a scheming planner who, he's a primary villain of the Fantastic Four, but there's a lot of layers there that you have to go through. Galactus, there isn't. Galactus, it's simple. There's this guy, he's coming, he sucks the life out of planet, he has his herald coming at Galactus. That's a lot easier to tell. And you can also intertwine Galactus with Celestials and all the other cosmic stuff that you put out there, because you've laid the ground for all the stuff that you're going to do, because Celestials are immensely powerful.
Well, and then you mentioned Celestials. I mean, there was some information that was put out there that that Marvel Studios has trademarked the name Avengers Eternal War, and so if they were to go that route and try and branch into Eternal War, I mean, then you're looking at like the very beginnings in the creation of the multiverse, and that's if you wanted to go down the multiverse route. But to me, I don't think they're going to do that. I think they trademarked it for probably a number of different reasons. But that storyline does involve Reed Richards. It involves Doctor Doom. So I think that could be a fallback. But I think at this point, I mean, if you pivoted away from Kang, then I think that now you're creating more confusion on what was the point. What happened to that guy that we saw in the other movies and the other shows? Is he gone? What's going on? And I'm talking
everywhere. Everywhere.
But I'm talking about from the general audience. They're like, what happened to Jonathan Majors? Wasn't he in the last show or something, or the movie, or I don't know. I think he's gone now. I think that's the bad guy now. So you have to keep your continuity flowing, and I think that Doom is going to eventually be a massive villain in the MCU. But I think that for now they need to write out and finish out Kang Dynasty, and then get into Secret Wars, and then go from there.
By the way, speaking of I was just about to say on continuity real quick, William, because this is something this is kind of going back in their past a little bit, but when they recast Norton for Ruffalo in Avengers, this was actually one I thought they could get away with, where because he's on the run, I thought the way they were gonna explain that was that Bruce had undergone plastic surgery to change his appearance so he could
like face off.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, and the fact it's
that's
like,
a great movie, by the way.
Oh, it is, yeah. So I thought it's like, it was like a deal breaker where I thought, oh man, you could have narratively, like kind of implemented the recast in a way that could have worked for you there.
You could have done that, but I think people would have been okay either way. But here's the thing about when it comes to with Kang, and like I said, I explained this before, how all this lines up and how the Fantastic Four should have already been part of this situation, is the Celestials' judgment of mankind could not properly happen under the sacred timeline, because there's certain things that were not in existence that will allow them to judge mankind. Kang happening, Ramatut happening, Ramatut going back 5,000 years to find Apocalypse and basically usher in mutant kind, him being the first mutant. Remember, the Celestials are there to judge the evolution of mankind. Are they a dead end species? If they are, they're going to wipe them out because that's their responsibility as the experimenters of it. But all this stuff, all the multiverse, the time travel, has mankind gotten out of hand to the point where they're gods without discipline, or are they justified in the fact that here comes mutant kind? Mutant kind is the next evolution of mankind, and that's what they were, and more so than all the other species that they created, because they created the deviant gene. The deviant gene and the X gene are two different things. The deviant gene is basically has the same characteristics pretty much amongst their reality. Same thing with the Eternals and all that. But with the mutant gene, it's random mutations throughout mankind's evolution, and that's, to them, that would be the height of their experiment. So Kang is important to that, because Brahma Tut goes back and brings about Apocalypse, who is allowed to use that celestial. They don't interfere with Apocalypse using celestial technology to advance mutant kind. They allow him to do that. So they are watching him now. So the Celestials, you've already set the tone. They're there, and you should have had And then Reed Richards is a guy. He's the guy that ties all this together as far as figuring this out and making it explainable to us. Whenever there was some kind of twisted whatever the fuck you were going on, Reed Richards always was able to explain it to the dumbest person in the room. And that's what Marvel needs right now, is somebody to not that their fans are dumb, but to break it down to an exciting storyline. And it's like, hey, this is so and so energy. The Celestials, they're explaining the danger. The Fantastic Four is always good about being the harbinger of the most dangerous thing out there. Galactus, world-eating, Celestials, things like that. And I think that they need to be there now. They should have been there literally. That's my post-credit scenes for No Way Home, is that when all these people got forced into their realities, the Fantastic Four were not. And now they're in a reality that they shouldn't be in. But when you reset the timeline, you do, when Loki did all that, he basically made it to where when all that comes back together, you can create any universe you want. And I don't believe that the multiverse will go on beyond these things. I think the whole point of it was to break it and line up the things that you want to keep and get rid of the things you want to keep. So now you've always had mutant kind. You've always had mutant kind. You've always had Apocalypse. You've always had the Fantastic Four, even though you would have seen them introduced as offshoots because they don't belong there. Once the sacred timeline is restored, then they would have been there. So I think that's what they should have been doing. And but they're going to be fine. I think Marvel's going to be fine.
Yeah.
I think like I said, they got people that know how to bring them back to their standard. Also, you have Bob Iger, and there's a difference between the way Chapek ran things and how Kevin Feige was constrained under him versus what kind of freedom Bob Iger gives Kevin Feige. So that's also a big difference as far as the work environment and everything else. But I also think that Disney Plus not being in existence, when you have the price of movies, everything's gone up, but people's wages. So families of four have to make a conscious decision of, do I want to see this movie here, or do I want to see this movie on the couch with the family, or we want to see this movie? We have 3 or 4 movies we got to see, and like I said, math always wins. It's going to cut away half of those movies, even if it's something you want to see. Can you afford to take a family to movies like we were when we were kids, when we went every week, or when we went twice a week in some cases? A family of 4 going to the movies could cost you $125. So you could put out a banger of a movie. It may not matter if I can't afford to take my family to see it, and I have Disney Plus, and the 4-year-olds, the 5-year-olds, the 6-year-olds, they'll be okay with watching it once you're on your couch and not having to pay $8-9 for popcorn. A lot of it is economics and them having to fit into an economic situation that also has an option for streaming. Warner Brothers is the same way. And some of these guys are really, like I said, they want to tell you that we're going to get back to the theaters, and theaters really, that's bullshit. They want to make that stagnant. They want to make that constant revenue eventually from streaming, because it cuts out the middleman. The $1 billion that a movie makes is not what the studio gets. There's a lot of people that got to get fed before that money gets pared down. A lot of owed money, a lot of leverage interest that has to get paid down. Actors and actresses bonus. There's a whole bunch of stuff that before that food gets to you at the end of the table, a whole bunch of people have eaten off of it. Streaming allows for them to cut out a lot of that, and allows for them to maximize. And like I said before, it cuts through the bullshit of you get that content directly to the brain and in the vein of your consumer. And before Rotten Tomatoes means a lot less when I'm not spending $125 to bring a family of 4 because I don't need your advice. If I watch it on Netflix, I don't like it. Guess what? I push the X on the screen. I go to something else. So I think what Marvel's going through right now also is everybody. Mission Impossible is a new financial dynamic to where if I got all these movies, and it's going to get worse because of the strike, it's going to compress all this shit. Some of these movies that you think are going to do well are not going to do well because they're overlapped. And then some of them have to get moved to times that they're not. Dune 2 is getting moved.
Well, it did get moved. It got well, you think it's going to get moved. Yeah, it got moved earlier to like the beginning of March, but you think it's going to get kicked back to like November.
Yeah, I want to see it as soon as possible. But okay, you're going to make the same amount of money for Dune, whether you put it out in October or November as you are in March. But you get it closer to that Oscar. And that movie now without Oppenheimer, without all these other movies in the way, you could be getting 9-10 nominations. If you bring home 3 or 4, that increases the prestige of your film. Mm-hmm. You know why? Anybody tells me what are the advantages of Dune coming out in March? 8-9 months away from Oscar time, when it could probably make a Christmas Day release. It could probably make the same amount of money, even though I want to see it tomorrow. Yeah. I think I should already seen Dune. But I don't see any significant advantage of getting it out there. I mean, maybe I'm just wrong, but I just don't see any, because right now it would have come out in November and would have put it right in the backyard, and it would be competing with Oppenheimer, Flower Moon, and all these other things. Even if it was just for technical awards, those count. So March, I mean, the only movie I know that was released that early that got that kind of Oscar buzz eventually was Silence of the Lambs, which was released in January of 1991 and won its Oscar in February 1992. But generally, the movies that are up for Oscar consideration are released right around a certain time frame. I don't know. I mean, maybe unless they need to make the money back that they spent quicker. I mean, that could be a case. But I would not be surprised if Dune got moved from March to later on in the fall.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Andre had mentioned he's got to go ahead and take off in a minute here.
Oh, so I'm not even paying attention to this.
Okay.
Yeah, might be a good spot to wrap up the stream. Tomorrow.
Yeah, at least for me it is.
Yeah, for me too. It's 2:00 here, so yeah, let's go ahead and wrap it up. We got
definitely plenty of streaming tomorrow with Godzilla and all that.
Oh yeah, you guys got a big day.
Yep. All right, so sorry if I didn't get to your gargantuan thing dollar movies. Thank God for dollar movies and bootleggers. Yeah, but that stuff looks like shit. Some of that stuff, you got the afro getting up and getting popcorn in the middle of the movie. When I was overseas, we had a bunch of those.
Oh yeah,
but yeah,
I remember. Right, my dad told me about that.
They had a term for them. It's kind of a racist term, so I won't bring it up here. But they had a term for them. But yeah, Nicotina, where can they find you?
You can find me on YouTube on my channel, Nicotina. And I'm sorry, I'm tired. But I just released a video about a bunch of crazy MCU rumors and talking about, kind of my prediction about where they're going to go with the MCU. I have a video that I'm going to be working on tomorrow night, and probably will be released on Monday or maybe Sunday. I don't know. And it's going to be about some of the crazy rumors about Superman Legacy and kind of following up on where we're at with Superman Legacy in terms of casting and where I think that James Gunn might be going with the story. So check out my channel, Nicotina. I'll put the link in the chat.
It's in the description, by the way, guys. Too. You can go ahead and put it in the description. So
so you can follow me on YouTube. I'm also on Twitter or X. Instagram, Vero as well. So yeah, check me out.
All right, Kung Fu Panda, where can they find you?
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter and Vero, somewhat on Facebook. You can find my writing on Kung Fu Kingdom and on Screen Rants. You can find also some of my writing as far as like a giant thread addressing Snyderverse related stuff from today on my Twitter. And you can find me, of course, here. You just breaking down all this good nerd shit on the Sci-Fi Center, which, of course, we'll be doing plenty of that tomorrow between the Monarch Watch Party and the Saturday Night Stream.
Yep. And if you want to find me, you can just Google me. It's that easy. All right. So we'll wrap up the show the same way we opened it up and the way we wrap all of our shows. And especially these days, holy shit, is just getting up in the morning these days is tough. All the stuff we got going on. The holidays are coming. Just all kinds of things that are going. Just certain reminders. We'll be reminding you too as we get towards our charity event on December 22nd. Like I said, hopefully every single person that is currently watching this live is doing okay. Hopefully every person that is watching this on a replay, which is going to be the vast majority of you, is doing okay. But if you're not, 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, 24/7 calls, text, and chat. And also, if you are doing okay, don't assume that everyone around you is. These are tough times. These are tough parts of the year. And, don't have that conversation to where it starts, well, I thought everything was okay. He seemed just fine yesterday. I've heard that so many times, and you only hear it after things are not okay. Mm-hmm. Spread this around. Whatever tool you have to stop a bad outcome from happening, it could be 988, it could be anything you got. Whatever tool you have, spread it out there. It's the internet. It works. All right, guys. I will see you for like a lot tomorrow and a lot on Sunday. You're probably going to get sick of me, but if you don't, hey, we'll see you tomorrow for Monarch at 2 p.m. Pacific time. We'll see you tomorrow at 9 p.m. Pacific time for the Saturday Overnight Live. I will review a whole bunch of stuff. We're going through X-Files. I got a couple of, we're going to review Monarch. We're going to review a lot of things, and then I haven't decided a certain topic yet. But like I said, they'll hit me in a dream. But like I said, we got plenty of time tomorrow, and then we got our Sunday, a Sunday night live stream that will be happening on Sunday night. So, like I said, if you get paid by the hour, you're gonna get, you get rich off of us this weekend. But last weekend, our record 13 and a half hours of streaming. I don't know where the fuck I pulled that out of my ass, but we did it, and it went quick though. I enjoyed every minute of it. So, for Kung Fu Panda, Brad. For Nicotina and myself, thank you guys for being here, and I will see you a lot tomorrow.
Later, guys.